Welcome back to another true story here at graveyarddance.com. Over the past couple of years, we've covered just about every type of strange case you can think of. We've covered psychotic parents who have harmed their spouses or children. We've covered ghosts who have came back from beyond the grave to help capture their own killers or to finish otherwise unfinished business. There have been some really horrible crime cases, including our most recent one about the infamous Richard Speck. As bad as those cases were, most of the time, there was some kind of reason behind their crimes, even if it may have been wrong or, in some cases, selfish and downright wrong. Today's case, when you hear the reason behind it, will leave you dumbfounded. It's probably one of the, if not the single most worst crimes I have ever heard of being committed with no actual reason behind it. To know an innocent woman, who was someone's daughter and loved one, lost their life for something so trivial is just mind-boggling to me. Before we get onto all that, let's take a moment to mention our sister channel, which is fairly new. It don't have nearly as much content as we do here, but give them time, because they are doing a great job so far. If you like to relax and watch sleep videos with things like the sounds of thunderstorms, winter storms, or a crackling fireplace to help you sleep, they have it at bluedreamscapes.com. They also do audio stories to help you fall asleep, or if you like listening to them in your car or while you work. From spooky stories to romance, they have it coming with new content coming weekly. Remember, that's bluedreamscapes.com. Tell your friends about them. Also, help us grow by liking and subscribing to our channel here. Your help and support is very appreciated. Now onto the story of the murder of Jayna Murray. In 2011, Jayna Murray, a 30-year-old adrenaline enthusiast, worked part-time as a manager at Lululemon, which is a clothing company that specializes in athletic apparel, while pursuing her master's degree at Johns Hopkins University. Yoga was her way of balancing her adventurous spirit, and she found that Lululemon perfectly aligned with her passion. On the night of Wednesday, March 11th, she headed to work, walking past the neighboring Apple store on her way to the night shift. Jayna finished her shift at 9:45 p.m. and locked up the building as she left with her colleague, Brittany Norwood. Shortly after, Brittany realized she had forgotten her wallet and persuaded Jayna to reopen the store and go back inside with her. At 10:05 p.m., a loud disturbance was heard, so intense that employees at the neighboring Apple store noticed. One Apple employee even overheard a woman's desperate cries, "Don't do this. Talk to me. What's going on? God help me." But for whatever reason, it would go unreported. The following morning, another manager, Rachel Erdely, arrived to open the store just before 8 a.m. She immediately noticed that the building had not been properly secured and the lights were still on. Assuming it was a simple oversight, she entered the store. However, upon stepping inside, she realized this was far from a harmless mistake. The store was in complete disarray, indicating something serious had occurred. Her worst fears were confirmed when she called out and heard someone moaning from the back of the store. Panic-stricken, Rachel called 911 and ran out of the store, straight into a crowd gathered outside the neighboring Apple store for a product launch. Among the crowd was Ryan Ha, who immediately noticed Rachel's terrified expression and approached her to see what was wrong. Although she didn't know Ryan, Rachel gratefully accepted his offer to help. Too scared to go back inside alone, she asked Ryan to accompany her. Upon entering the store, Ryan quickly understood her fear. Jayna was lying face down in the middle of the store. When the police arrived, they discovered Brittany in the bathroom, alive, but in need of immediate medical attention. She was covered in cuts, her hands tied above her head, with a deep wound on her right hand, and her pants torn at the crotch. Despite thoroughly examining the crime scene, detectives were initially puzzled. The emptied safe suggested a robbery gone wrong. Additionally, they found 2 sets of footprints, potentially belonging to the suspects. However, while one footprint was identified as a size 14 trainer, the other was linked to a shoe left behind in the store. If this was just a robbery, why was there a murder? There was only one person who could shed light on the situation, their sole witness, Brittany Norwood. At the hospital, the police began unraveling Brittany's story. She recounted that when she and Jayna returned to the store, they were followed inside. Two men, disguised with ski masks, managed to enter behind them. The intruders immediately tied them up, sexually assaulted them, and attacked Jayna when she tried to resist, ultimately murdering her. After interviewing Brittany, the police had more questions than they did answers. It really didn't make any sense to them why Jayna was assaulted so intensely while Brittany was left to live. As it turned out, Jayna would have over 300 stab wounds according to her autopsy, and although there seemed to be a sexual component to the crime at first glance by the way Brittany's leggings were torn and by her own words, there was no physical proof of that type of assault being done to Jayna. Whatever happened, it seemed to be more personal, but what could it have been? The police began to get suspicious of Brittany from the very start. Brittany further explained that the attackers both racially and verbally abused her, taunting that they knew her name and address. How did the assailants obtain this information? Did Brittany know more about their identities than she was revealing? They were about to find out. On March 16th, the police called Brittany in for questioning. They asked her to describe Jayna's car, but she claimed not to know what it looked like. During the session, the police collected her fingerprints and DNA samples to rule her out as a suspect. Throughout the questioning, she remained unusually calm and sometimes even appeared uninterested, which only heightened the police's suspicions. The police were convinced something was off about Brittany's story, but lacked the evidence to prove it. They continued to investigate until they had a breakthrough. CCTV footage from that night showed two men in what looked like ski masks passing by the Lululemon store. Could these be the attackers? Further investigation revealed that the two men in the CCTV footage were just restaurant workers who walked by the store every night on their way home. This shifted the focus back to Brittany, leaving the crucial question, was she a victim or a suspect? After the CCTV lead fell through, the police had another breakthrough. Brittany's siblings, Chris and Marissa, called to share information. They said Brittany was too scared to reveal herself. They claimed Brittany was forced by the attackers to move Jayna's car. This only heightened police suspicions since Brittany had previously denied knowing anything about the car. They promptly arranged another meeting with Brittany for further interrogation. During the session, Brittany explained that she had been instructed to move Jayna's car before returning to the store and enduring sexual assault. The police found it perplexing why she didn't seize the chance to escape. She was alone with a functioning vehicle, but willingly returned to the dangerous situation and the crime scene. It defied logic. Already skeptical about Brittany's failure to escape using the car, the police were further confounded when she mentioned seeing a police officer while driving. When pressed on why she didn't seek help at that moment, she claimed fear had clouded her judgment and she wasn't thinking clearly. She also alleged that the shock of the situation caused her to forget to mention this detail earlier, but the police remained unconvinced. While shock could have contributed to her confusion, there were still inconsistencies that raised doubts. So, while Brittany was in the interrogation room with her brother and sister, the police opted to leave them unsupervised for a period, hoping for further revelations. Their strategy proved successful. Once alone, Brittany's brother initiated the questioning and directly asked her if she had any involvement in Jayna's murder. In reply, she stated, "I don't want to discuss it here." That marked the turning point. These words provided the police with the evidence they needed. Upon their return to the room, they asserted their belief that she had orchestrated the robbery, self-inflicted her injuries, and murdered Jayna. Subsequently, she was arrested on suspicion of first-degree murder. During Brittany's trial, the prosecution asserted that Brittany Norwood was accountable for the vicious murder of Jayna at the Lululemon store on March 11th. The murder was portrayed as premeditated, a concept that, under Maryland law, could encompass planning in just a matter of seconds. So, what drove her to commit such a crime? While the motive couldn't be disclosed during the trial due to suppressed evidence, subsequent findings suggest that Brittany may have been confronted by Jayna for stealing a pair of leggings shortly before the incident. Could this have prompted Brittany to silence her? Further investigation has revealed that routine security checks were conducted by staff on their coworkers to prevent theft from the store. Unfortunately, Jayna discovered something incriminating in Brittany's bag, a pair of the notorious Lululemon leggings. Could it be that Jayna, a woman who loved life, a woman who was loved by her many friends and family, and a woman who had her entire life left ahead of her, could have been murdered in cold blood over a simple pair of leggings? Mind-blowing when you think about it, isn't it? As a manager, Jayna had a responsibility to report her findings, and this is where the prosecution believes Brittany found her motive. They argue that Brittany aimed to prevent Jayna from reporting the theft, and her scheme commenced when Brittany persuaded Jayna to return to the store 15 minutes after their initial departure. Expanding on this theory, the prosecution presented evidence suggesting that Brittany took deliberate steps to ensure Jayna would be the one to reopen the store for her. Despite not having Jayna's phone number, Brittany contacted another employee to obtain it, ensuring that it was Jayna who accompanied her back into the building. Additionally, the prosecution disclosed that there was no evidence of sexual assault. Therefore, despite Brittany sustaining injuries, they implied that these wounds were self-inflicted. Furthermore, they accused Brittany of orchestrating the robbery and personally assaulting Jayna. However, for the prosecution to secure a conviction, they needed to demonstrate Brittany's capability of inflicting the over 300 wounds discovered on Jayna's body. She had been brutally beaten to the point of being unrecognizable. The question remained, how could Brittany have perpetrated such violence? They contended that she utilized a rope discovered in the store in an attempt to strangle Jayna. Additionally, they believed she wielded a foot-long metal merchandise rack, both pursuing and assaulting her with it, even utilizing it as a weapon to strike her head repeatedly. Supporting evidence for this scenario emerged from the Bethesda Apple store adjacent to Lululemon. Multiple employees attested to hearing unusual sounds around 10 p.m., with one even recalling hearing what resembled a woman imploring someone to engage in conversation and avoid taking a particular action. This evidence aided the prosecution in expanding their timeline of the evening's occurrences, estimating that the assault likely lasted around 20 minutes. This duration provided sufficient grounds for them to argue that the murder had been premeditated. Yet, there was more than just the initial commotion heard at the Apple store. During the interval from when the disturbance began around 10 p.m. until the store closed at 11 p.m., several employees working that night alleged to have heard additional incriminating evidence. Among the witnesses, they reported hearing arguments, screams, and one employee even thought they heard Jayna pleading for assistance. While these sounds were anticipated given the knowledge of the assault, what surprised the detectives was the revelation that only female voices were audible. If only female voices were heard, how could there have been two male attackers? As the medical examiner prepared to present her findings, the situation appeared grim for Brittany. Mary Ripple, who conducted Jayna's autopsy, stated that Jayna sustained more injuries than she had encountered in her career, totaling 331. Think about that for a minute, folks. 331 stab wounds, all over a pair of leggings. Back in 2011, how much could they have been? $5 maybe? It really is sickening to think about what was lost over something so trivial. Aside from the wounds, bruises, and cuts, there were also 7 brutal blows to the head, one of which was so strong that it literally crushed her skull. This crush inevitably led to severe bruising and internal bleeding on the brain. It gets even worse as hard as that is to believe. It was also revealed the cause of death. Along with the numerous head injuries, there was also evidence that Jayna was strangled using a rope that was later found in the store. After everything that poor woman went through, her final sight was seeing her attacker as her last living sight. Over a pair of stockings. This is where it gets very strange, though. You'd think the type of person who would do something so sinister, something so evil as this would be some Jason Voorhees or Leatherface-looking evil maniac, right? Brittany actually started out with a very bright future ahead of her if she would have stayed on the right path. She was born in 1982 in Federal Way, Washington. She came from a very large family. She was one of 10 kids and her parents were good people, but didn't have a lot of money, although they did work hard to provide for their family. The parents did a great job of instilling a great work ethic and values in most of their children. Some of them were doctors, attorneys, and high-level business consultants, and it seemed at first that Brittany would be on that same path, at first that is. By the time she reached high school, she was one of the best soccer players in the entire state of Washington, and by her junior year of high school, talent scouts were already coming for her with scholarship offers. She accepted one at Stony Brook College in Long Island, New York, and literally had a full ride paid for. All she had to do was show up. Unfortunately, it wouldn't last because before long, she was kicked out of school over stealing something from one of her friends' lockers. It's hard to believe that she could lose an entire paid scholarship over something so small. Was it her attitude when she was caught? It's hard to say whether she was apologetic or confrontational when she was caught, but what is known was she was thrown out of school and sent home to Washington, where she spent the next 7 years just kind of sad and directionless. Finally, she decided that she wanted to become a personal trainer, and where best to go about doing something like that? Washington, D.C. She had a couple of siblings already there that she could stay with until she got her business off the ground. But in order to get by until all that happened, she took a job at Lululemon, and the rest is history, they say. After blowing such a mind-boggling opportunity like a free paid college scholarship, you'd think anyone would have enough common sense not to ever steal again. But sticky fingers led to her getting caught again, and it was most likely going to end with her being fired. Again, over something so small, a pair of cheap leggings. 8 months after this vicious attack, in November 2011, a 6-day trial took place. Brittany was found guilty and sentenced to life with no possibility of parole. Her entire life thrown away for nothing. Think about how much damage was done to not only her own life, but to her family, and especially to Jayna and all who loved her, all because someone couldn't keep from stealing something that didn't belong to them. Moral to the story: don't steal. Defiantly don't kill, and most of all, just do your best to be good to each other. We hope you liked the story this week. If you did, we'd sure appreciate if you'd hit that old subscribe button, and while you're down there, click that like button as well. Don't forget to check out our sister station over at bluedreamscapes.com. I think that's all for today. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you have a suggestion for a new story, drop it in the comments below or drop one at the suggestion box at our website, which is graveyarddance.com. Thanks for watching, everyone.